Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Welcome back to PCA Insider. We are at PCA National Headquarters. Around the table, usual cast of characters. We have Manny, Damon, and myself. But we have a guest today, Mr. Chuck Goldsborough, I believe co-owner and general manager of Ralph's.
Thank you. Great to be here again, guys.
Now, I remember, I think the first time I met you, you had a Lexus race car on a flatbed. How long ago was that?
That had to be 25 years ago, 20 years ago.
Right?
Yeah.
But you were into Porsches way before then.
It's funny telling the story. I was born September 18th, 62. My first ride in a Porsche was 13 hours later, September 19th, 1962, from Mercy Hospital up to Roland Park.
No way.
A 61B coupe.
Wow. So your parents were in the fold,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into your details, we should probably just talk about, I've known Ralph's ever since I've gotten into the Porsche game, and I remember the ads back in the day where there's a Porsche on a curvy road, and I guess before they deliver the car, that Ralph Simmers would go for a ride, and it's been 50 plus years.
54, yeah.
54 years. That's incredible.
And prior to that, he worked for the Fenwick family at what was then Porsche of Towson.
So he must have been
actually before that, he worked for the original Stuttgart Imports.
In his, teens?
Yeah.
20s?
Was that Pappy?
In his teens, yeah, Pappy.
Yeah.
Wow, incredible. All right, so, Manny, I'm going to let you start off with maybe Chuck's background.
I think to me, Chuck's one of the most interesting people alive because we could spend 2 hours talking about all the stuff he's experienced and does. He's also a sheriff, if you didn't know that.
You're a sheriff?
So, I think in Virginia. Was it Virginia where you're a sheriff?
I worked for the Sheriff's Department in West Virginia, yeah.
Oh, okay, everybody, be cool. Be cool.
So if you go driving with Chuck, he's got a badge, so you might be able to get out of it. Or at least he'll get out
I've
of
heard
it.
about this stuff called courtesy.
Yeah, well, it was very helpful in the Target, California this summer.
Oh, really?
Yes, that Dave at TRE puts on. It's the 15th year, and I was out with a dear friend of mine, and it was it came in handy.
Oh, man.
So one of the first memories I have of Chuck is back in the 90s, I think. We used to go to the 24 Hours of Daytona every year, and we were walking through the paddock during the race, and this is like maybe 11 o'clock, midnight, and we run into Chuck, and he's got his driving suit on, a helmet, and he tells us that he's walking around looking for rides, he says, because these old guys that pay to drive, which majority of people, can't see at night.
No way.
So they get scared, because it's very intimidating. Back then, there wasn't even lights in the infield.
No.
Or excuse me, the bowl, rather. It was completely dark.
Yep.
And so he would just say, hey, I can fill in this stint for you who you want. And they would basically say, here, you jump
without risking to sound risque, but I can picture you dimly lit alleyway in front of the garages, kind of waving your suit and your helmet to people, and hopefully that they're going to pay you.
Well, there were a lot of guys. When I was looking for rides, that's really early, man.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's my first memory.
Before I drove for Porsche and before I drove for Toyota and Lexus, I was like every young driver, going around looking for rides, and I knew. It's funny. At 62, there were guys, well-to-do gentlemen in their 50s and 60s that were gentleman driver and liked to ride, but they did not like the rain, they did not like night, and they certainly didn't like the banking at rain in the rain at night.
Wow.
So you could always if the teams knew you were out there, you could usually jump in the seat.
All right, so kind of quickly fill in the blank between your ride home from the hospital as a newborn and to the point where you're selling yourself on the lanes of Daytona. How did you get there?
There's a real story, which I won't tell. And then there's, I always knew I wanted to be a race car driver. When I was 8 years old, I'll never forget, I was sitting in the classroom doing this, couldn't see anything. And the teachers told my parents, I think you need to get him checker glasses. Think he's having tough time seeing the chalkboard. So I go and I get my first eye test, and the doctor says, "Young man, what do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "I'm either going to be a fighter pilot or a race car driver." Now this is 1970.
Glasses and fighter pilot. That's
Well, he said, "Well, I'd focus on being a race car driver." He goes, "They're never going to let you in the Navy or the Air Force with these eyes."
Oh.
I mean, why would you say that? To
oh
an 8-year-old?
crushed,
Yeah.
crushed as an 8-year-old.
So, and now you go to the Air Force Academy, they give you LASIX, and you're
Good.
gone. You know. But so I just focused on it, and I started first in motocross, worked my way to road racing.
Motocross motorcycles.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then worked my way to road racing with the AMA and WERA, and then quickly, I guess 1986, with a broken shoulder bone, 3 broken ribs, broken fingers, decided I wanted to switch to cars.
Yeah, I think
from
people that
off at Pocono.
people that do motocross or motorcycle racing on circuits, you guys are a little bit crazy. I mean, stuff comes at you
Well, you're
so much
immortal.
quicker. And yeah, exactly. So were your parents, your dad obviously, or your mom and dad had a Porsche, so they were somewhat enthusiasts. Like, were they pushing in this direction, or
No.
were they like, please don't do this and go to school?
Wanted me to get a real job.
Yeah.
You know, go to college, get my law degree, or be a doctor, or be an engineer, something. They never thought. My father still doesn't think that racing is a career. Nor does he think.
They're both still around?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
My
that's
father's 94. My dad's 94. My mother's 84.
Oh.
But he's still, basketball, playing baseball for a living isn't a real job. Playing football, racing isn't a real job.
So once you decided to go into cars, what was the first car?
It was 70 Mercury Capri, V6 German Capri.
Oh, German Capri.
Yeah, I started in SCCA regionals, and eventually had a 3-car team, and had a blast. And then somebody offered me a ride in a Formula Ford
Ooh.
at Watkins Glen of all tracks, and I just fell in love with it. And then I kept talking to people, and I got my way into Toyota Atlantic, and did Atlantics for 2 seasons, and just fell in love with it. I mean, Atlantics, ground effects, it was just incredible. And that led to Indy Lights and Indy Lights tests. And then I got a call. This was 1990. Had to be soon after. Got a call from a gentleman named Lee Miller that was running a Firehawk team, Porsche Firehawk team.
Yep.
And it was sponsored, it was funded by Champion Porsche. And he called me up and said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm looking for an Indy ride. He goes, what are you doing right now? I said, well, nothing. He goes, why don't you come down and test? And if you're good enough, I'll let you drive one of the cars. And I didn't even understand the whole concept of a multi-car team. And 2 of his cars had paid or pro drivers, and 2 had funded drivers. And I was right at that cusp where he didn't pay me to be a pro driver, but I got to drive because he stuck me with a 50-year-old dentist, at 60 at that time, so my job was to make him go faster.
So there's a lot of people that want to be a race car driver. There's probably a few people that can actually drive, but to be a professional race car driver, someone has to show you the ropes on the business end of it. And in your early years, how did you navigate? Was there someone that was your mentor? Did it trial and error? Or
I did a lot of reading.
did a lot of reading?
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
and
good for you.
paid attention to a lot of successful drivers' interviews and watch what they did. And you're right. Most people don't realize you have to be not just a good driver, but you have to be a good marketer, good businessman. There's so much more that goes into it. It's unbelievable, and it's truly a full-time career.
And it's a tough industry. We had professional drivers here at the podcast. Like, as we were talking, they were literally looking for sponsors so that they can continue their season. It is not just you find one and you just ride into the sunset for 10 years. It's like, it's a grind. You're constantly looking for a sponsor.
I would say it's probably harder now.
Oh,
But
much
when
harder.
you were in it, Chuck, you didn't have to worry about social media presence.
Oh, true.
You didn't have
Correct.
to worry about being polished for media like we
Correct.
are now. We saw that when Patrick Long first came on the scene. I remember thinking, holy cow, this guy is really polished. I mean, he
Yeah.
could be a politician, how well he delivers answers. And a lot of that was Porsche training him.
Yes.
Obviously he had a good foundation. He was, I think, made for that. But that was Porsche realizing this guy's going to be in front of people. he's got to be able to represent the brand as well as he does on the racetrack. So, yeah, it's a lot different than when you were going for the ranks.
Well, I'll tell you, it was funny. Early on, when I was looking for sponsorship, I was never afraid to go knock on McCormick Spice's door or whoever, and I'll never forget. I got into a couple doors and sold them on the idea, but they're like, "Well, our company, we like drag racing.
Yeah.
We don't like Indy cars. We don't like sports cars." And after two or three of those, I'm like, I'm getting in the door. I'm getting them to say yes, but they don't want to do what I want to do. So I started a company called Pelican Marketing Group back in 91 or 92. So if I could get in the door and convince them that it was a good business decision and a good branding exercise, but they didn't want to do what I was doing, whether it was in Formula Atlantic or Indy Lights or IndyCar, sports car, whatever, that I would at least say, oh, well, we represent an NHRA team. We represent a dirt track team. We represent a stock car team. So I would then take the sponsorship I got and go to teams and take a percentage for finding sponsorship. And
okay.
Teams loved it. They were like, yeah.
This guy's going out and doing the work
Yeah.
for us. Okay.
So, and that's how I was able to at least fund my own efforts. It's so funny. So many companies paid for my racing in the early days, but they were sponsoring other teams that I put them with, and I was racing off my percentage, my commission.
Wow. So is it like, and Manny's going to laugh because I'm going to try to make a sports analogy, but there's a lot of people that play very well in sports, but to become a pro, they're either living with their parents or a friend's couch or something until they finally make it. And when was the time that you consider yourself that you launched, like you got out and you're comfortable and you can do this as a career?
Yeah, even though my trajectory and my hopes were to go Indy Lights and then Indy, I got that call from Lee Miller, who was running the champion team, and I had never done endurance sports car racing, and it was so incredible.
How old were you?
91, so 29.
Okay.
Yeah. And which was late now.
Yeah, late
I mean,
now.
you got to be 13 and 14, at this level. Who's that sports car driver, the kid that's turning 16 and he won Daytona and Sebring, and now he's already got 2 Winston Cup rides?
I mean, they're pretty much going from the hospital into a cart and then their career starts, right?
I didn't have that, and I also didn't have the family support or backing. So if I wanted to do it, I had to do it on my own. And when I got that first experience at Daytona in 24 hours with the Porsche team, with Lee Miller and the champion Porsche squad, I was hooked, because the strategy, you had a multi-car team, you had multiple drivers in each car, you had 24 hours. I mean, it was so busy in your brain compared to getting into an Indy Lights car for 45 minutes or getting into a Toyota Atlantic, which is, fast, wonderful car.
What I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Toyota Atlantic.
Open wheel cars.
It's an open wheel.
Yeah,
car?
like
Okay.
today it would be Formula 3.
Oh, Formula 3. Okay.
Yeah. And and I did those cars. I did those at Laguna Seca. Incredible fun. Half an hour race. You're just getting started in half an hour. I mean, sometimes at Daytona, I remember being in a prototype, doing a three stint shift in the middle of the night.
Oh.
And 4 stints, and that's an hour and a half each stint. That's a long time in a car to keep your focus and keep your wits about you.
But the cars that are running in the endurance and such, the G-forces and the power to weight ratio compared to Indy Lights and formulas and stuff like that, do things, I don't want to say come easier, but are they easier to drive? Like from a driver's perspective, when you've been on a motorcycle and you've done crazy things and you do it in a car, a lot of times I feel like that's kind of slow motion. So if you're going from open wheel car to,
well, they're completely different disciplines. Look at Valentino Rossi.
Yeah.
Number 46, the world's winningest Grand Prix racer ever.
Yeah.
The Schumacher of GP bikes. He's now racing for the BMW sedan team, not prototypes. He's racing in the GT3 category and WC. And he'll tell you right now it's a learning experience. And look, he's been on every track. Yeah. He's not afraid of the speeds. He's not, but it's just so different.
Interesting.
Throwing your down to your shoulder and leaning into a corner as opposed to making the car bounce to the corner, and it's 10 times the weight. And he's doing well, but he didn't get to jump in a BMW and get pole position every time he got in there. It's a big.
So you may not have the fear factor, but you still have to learn the physics of it all.
Huge learning curve.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
every car's different. I mean, Firehawk or GT3 cars, they don't have the ground effects of prototypes.
Right.
Or of Indy cars, they're all different disciplines. No different than an NHRA top fuel versus a door slammer, And
you race competitively from late 20s until when?
Late 20s until 2007. So I guess I'm trying to think how old I was in 2007. About 25 years.
But you managed to convince Lexus, who I would never have thought of as a racing brand, to go racing.
It was a very funny story.
So they weren't racing, and then you came along, and then they were.
Yeah, they weren't racing. They were.
So you're the reason.
I'm the reason.
And they were like the luxury brand. They
Yeah,
never thought of
Well,
Lexus as a racing brand.
That was 1997. I was racing for the Toyota factory team in whatever Firehawk was called at that point, Motorola Cup, Grand Am Cup. I don't remember what it was called. I'm old school. I still call it Firehawk.
Yeah.
And I noticed, if you looked across at SECA World Challenge, if you looked up in Europe, if you looked everywhere, Mercedes was touring cars, Audi was touring cars, BMW, and they were all racing.
Is that like the DTM series?
Yes.
Oh, man,
but
I
even
love
in
those
SECA
things.
World Challenge, they were all in there.
Yeah.
And I'm racing for Toyota, and I went to the guys at TRD. I said, why isn't Lexus racing? Now, Lexus, little cap on history, Lexus was founded in 89 by Toyota because they had done 5-6 year studies, and everybody loved the Toyota Corolla, and they all grew up with them, especially on the West Coast. But the second they got successful, they, mid-level job, they got a BMW or a Cadillac or yeah.
I have a question, teacher. So can you confirm this factoid that I heard about? And because what you're saying is Toyota's known for the Corollas and reliability, but it wasn't known for luxury, and it was a brand issue that the folks back in Toyota marketing said, I don't know if you guys have heard this, like how they came up with the name Lexus. Do you know how they named it?
No, I actually don't know.
I figure it was
Not
a
the
play
name.
off luxury of Lexus.
Luxury export to the U.S. Lexus.
Oh my!
Never heard that.
But they were trying to come up with a cool
Crazy, right?
name that rolled off the
Yeah.
tongue. And yeah, I mean, if you look at the first LS400s,
Yeah.
they weren't called that in Japan.
Yes,
They were
they're still Toyota badged.
Yeah, they were still Toyota badged.
Yeah.
And so
Which I would love to have, by the way, a right-hand drive version. Ooh, and
JDM.
Oh my gosh.
So in 89, they come up with this, because they realized that everybody loved their brand, but as soon as you got successful in life,
You bounced out.
yes.
Yeah.
So like we can build every bit of good cars, Mercedes or BMW or Audi or blah, blah, blah. So they do this marketing study and they come out with them in 89, and there are only 20 dealerships in America. And it was $1 million in 89 to get one.
Wow.
Jerry Chevrolet and Joppa Road in Towson was offered one. He's like, yeah, no. And because they had pulled some executives from GM and Ford to launch this, and they went around to dealerships that buy into this. Well, now the ones that turned it down all look at what a $70 million,
Right,
$80 million,
yeah.
$100 million
Boy, did you
dealership
miss the
is.
boat on that one.
Exactly. So 10 years later, in only 10 years, they went from a snicker, laugh at, I'll get my wife the Lexus because she wants a luxury car, but I have a Mercedes.
Yeah.
By 97, 98, 99, they were number one JD Power in every category. And people have forgotten, it's been a quarter century. There was no certified pre-owned. Lexus started that. Toyota started that with Lexus. Now everybody does it. There was no loaner cars. When you went to the Mercedes dealer and dropped your car off for service, said, hey, can I get a car? They push the phone across the desk and let you call Hertz or call your wife to come pick you up. And then the wife would come home with a brand new Lexus in the driveway, and the guy's like, what's that car? Oh, I took my car in for service, and they gave me this to drive. Meanwhile, he's driving a Mercedes twice as much money. He's like, wait a minute, what's up with this?
Yeah.
And that changed what we know as dealerships. They were the
That's what
first.
Porsche does now, I think. So
What?
they took a little page from Lexus on
Who did?
All
Porsche.
dealerships.
Every dealership.
All dealerships, yeah.
They all have certified pre-owned now. Everybody has loaners. They all have. Lexus was the first one to put coffee, waiting rooms and boutique,
Yeah.
coffees and drinks and everything. So,
So you go racing with Lexus, and how long was
well,
that
I'm
stint?
racing with Toyota, and I kept going to TRD. Why isn't Lexus in this? Mercedes, Audi, BMW, everybody's in it. And they're like, TRD's like, a lot of people have tried, Roger Penske, Dennis Ossie, Chip, everybody's tried. Lexus doesn't want to go racing. So I don't think anything of it. I get invited to Amelia Isle that summer. Not Amelia, Pebble Beach, Monterey. And I see over where they got the prototype set up out on the lawn, there's Jay Leno. And Jay Leno's talking to this big guy, about 6'5", 6'6", white goatee, a bunch of Japanese guys standing around taking pictures and everything. And I said to my friend, I said, who's the guy talking to Jay Leno? He said, that's Brian Bergson. He's the CEO of Lexus.
Oh.
I said, huh.
Huh.
So I waited for Jay Leno. They shook hands and walked away. And I walked up to him and I introduced myself. I said, Brian, my name's Chuck Goldsborough. You don't know me, but I drive for, and he stops me and he says, you drive for Van Cleef, the Toyota team. I said, yeah. He said, boy, you've had a banner year. I said, yeah. And I said, listen, I just threw this out. I said, I just want to let you know I'm going to go racing Lexus next year. And this was just total.
He's like, how do I not know about this?
Yeah. And he goes, what are you going to race? I said, the GS400. I'm thinking of it as I'm spouting it out of my
wow.
mouth.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I'd love to help Toyota and Japan. They won't give us any money I said, well, I don't need your help. But since you guys are top of the roost and JD Power, this, that, and the other thing, I just want to let you know, because if I'm a huge success, you want to jump on my bandwagon. If I'm a dismal failure, you guys, I don't want to hurt. I don't want to embarrass the brand. Let me get your number. He'd never had a sales point.
Yeah.
And it just went on from there. And I literally lucked into it.
Wow. It pays to go to different events, and you never know who
Yeah.
you're going to run into, and the course of your life might change.
And it changed.
Yeah. And how long were you running the GS 400s?
Did the GSs for 2 years, and then there were three-year programs for the IS program. So
Okay.
the whole Lexus program went for about just under 10 years.
Now, was this race team under your stewardship, or like how did this?
I put the deal together, but I didn't want to run the team.
Oh, okay.
It was a local guy in Anne Arundel County. He's since passed away. But I handed to him, said, here, I did everything. I'll find the sponsorships and everything, but I just want to drive.
Yeah.
And it, about a year into it, it was way above his head. And then I ended up falling into the role of team manager and driving, and that, you don't want to do that. That's too much on your plate.
Yeah. And then after the Lexus stint, is that when you get back into Porsches, or did you ever leave Porsches?
I never left Porsche. I wasn't allowed to mention the name.
Yeah.
I couldn't ever wear a shirt with Porsche. I had to wear only Lexus clothing, obviously.
Yeah.
And
But in the middle of the night, you take your car out and go for a
well,
ride.
Brian Bergson knew in Porsches, and then when we won the championship in 2002, my contract stated I'd get a bonus and I could have any car I wanted. Well, that was the legal jargon written up, but they assumed it would be from Scion, Toyota, Lexus, something. So I go to Brian and said, hey, when do I get my car? And Wayne Zabo was heading my program. He was at Lexus. He said, what are you talking about? We give you a car every 6 months. We give your wife a car. The team gets new cars. You get all the cars you want. I said, they're mine to use. I only get them for 6 months, and I take really good care of them, give them back. I mean, it says you'll give me a car. He goes, oh, God. He goes, what do you want? I said, I want a GT3. Oh, shut up. And he used some very unprofessional language.
Yeah.
He says really slowly, as if I'm, slow learning.
Yeah.
He's Toyota product. I says, well, Wayne, you might want to look at your contract that you shoved down my throat. It doesn't mention the word Toyota product. And I badgered him for literally 8 or 9 months until one day I get a call from Owings Mills from Lenstoller Porsche, and it was not Barry, so it was Jimmy Berg, and Jimmy said, Chuck, there's a Porsche here for you.
What year?
GT3. This took a year, so it was late 03. It was Christmas of
996
03, 04.
GT3.
996.
Nice.
And he goes, should you be driving a Porsche? I said, why do you say that? Jimmy says, well, you are Mr. Lexus. I said, well, it's actually a gift from Lexus. And he's like, I don't think they're going to want you driving this around. So I had to keep that quiet for a couple of years.
I find it funny that they, the Porsche appeared at the dealership. Hey, come pick it up. You didn't get to choose the color.
No.
You didn't get to option it out.
Nothing.
They just said, here's your car.
Oh, and the GM knew about it, and this is funny because this was 2 years ahead of. Do you remember that very famous Jeff Gordon ad where he took the poor car salesman?
Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
We did that to the sales manager, to the salesman at Stoller that nobody liked.
Oh.
Here, this guy wants to test drive this car, and I was in on it, and the guy lost his mind. I just lost his mind, and 2 years later they came out with that commercial, and everybody at Stoller was calling me,
like,
we did it first.
That's hilarious. So when did you? Was it 2015 or when did the connection with Ralph's come about?
I'd always been a customer of Ralph's.
Okay.
Because I had the Porsches I couldn't talk about, so I took them to Ralph's, just like most people in town did at that time. And when I retired, I said, Ralph's, let's do something. I want to take it because it looked like a back alley shop in central London. In central London from just after World War II. I mean, it was old school, very old school. You walked around this deep of kitty litter, and and I said, and I was used to Lexus now, where everything's spotless. And I said, Ralph, let's do something. Nope. I had a partner, never do it again. So every year I'd go and get my oil changed. Ralph, ready to do something? Nope. Had a partner, never do it again. Finally, in 2014, I had taken my one of my early 65s in to get the carbs rebuilt and everything. And he said, 2 weeks. Well, anybody that knows Ralph's, that could mean anyway 2 to 7 months.
Now, at that time, was it really just Ralph himself and the shop, or were there
No,
other
he
people?
had
Did you have
two mechanics.
Two mechanics.
Yeah,
okay.
2 mechanics and a secretary. But it was still, Ralph was still handwriting tickets and he was doing everything himself.
Yeah.
And you can't do that when you're running a business. And so he calls me in October 14 and he said, hey, are you around? I said, yeah, I'm around. He said, come up and see me. So I drove up from house and went to see him. I said, well, I'm thinking, my car's ready. Yeah, great. He says, do you still want to buy my business? And I looked at him, I said, no. And he says, what? You've been bugging me every year since you retired. Yeah. I said, I want to buy you. I want to be your partner. And he's like, I don't want this. I said, I can go start on my own. I want to be your partner. I want to take it to the next level. And he said, let me think about it. Called me a day later. He goes, all right, let's
figure this out.
Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And then my initial plan, who's the guy in Texas with the gas monkey where he does the makeover garages?
Richard Rollins.
Well, this was in this was 14.
Around that time.
So
Yeah.
I was ahead of him on that because I didn't even know he was doing that, if he was even doing it at that point. And I looked around Ralph's. I was like, there's no way I can do a makeover on this while he's still running. So the space directly next door was 3 times the size. I went to the landlord. Forgot to mention this to Ralph. Went to the landlord, struck up a deal. I said, give me 3 months to make this into a shop, and we'll start renting it from you. And we signed a 5-year deal. So Ralph would see me in the parking lot going by after 2 or 3 days. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I told you I was going to do a makeover of the shop. He goes, my shop, this shop. I said, no, Ralph's too old. We got to do this right. And do you guys remember Sanford and Son when? When he said, Elizabeth,
I'm coming, Elizabeth.
I got one of those from Ralph. He's like, you're going to put us out of business. I said, I don't think so, Ralph. I said, I think it'll be okay. And I mean, it was 2 years after the transition before he was finally convinced. And at that point, I said, we've outgrown this. And then I got the
Elizabeth again.
Yes.
And your current space, you went in 2020?
Signed the deal to buy the building in January of 2020 and started the maker. What happened in March of 2020?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The whole world shut down.
Yeah.
You couldn't get contractors. You couldn't get supply. You couldn't get anything. So what should have taken us 6 months to move in took us almost a year and a half. We didn't move in until late 21. And it was very trying. I mean, everything that we had budgeted to do for the shop literally doubled and tripled in that year cost-wise.
So to give people a visual image of, I hopefully we'll have pictures also if you're watching YouTube. So the shop is very ambitious. It's I'm sure you can tell the square footage, but it rivals dealerships as far as the look of it. It has a second level, all glass, that you can be looking down at while the work's being done. Is there like 7 or 8 lifts?
We have 8 workstations and a alignment rack, so 9 workstations.
And it fits. I don't know how many cars you fit inside there, but it's a ton.
Yeah, well,
of
and that's
cars.
thank you, man. That's where I knew we could excel. You know, I won't say the name of the dealerships, but there's dealerships down there. You go in their parking lot, you'll see a 1970 911 sitting out in the rain. It's there for weeks.
Yeah.
These are all vintage and antique cars, and they're either holding their value or going up in value. And
Can't just leave them inside.
they love knowing they can bring it to Ralph's, and it's going to sit inside. You know, until it gets worked on and after, and that takes a lot of space. But you know, we offer that as a courtesy to all of it. Now, if it's someone's daily Macan or Cayenne diesel, you know, it's nobody cares about that. But I'm talking about the cars that are of value now.
No, I haven't been up there recently, but the last time I was up there, you were still kind of the end part of the shop was still sort of being built out. I mean, it's ginormous. Like just the part that I saw felt like 20,000 square feet.
It is. It's
But
25.
Yeah, and then you had more space. So is that entire building Ralph's now, or are you
No.
using part of it?
I divide it into thirds, and
Okay.
the middle space is run by a really cool high-end, one of those Sprinter conversions.
Okay,
They
yeah.
take a Sprinter, make it off-grid with solar and water and everything. And then the far end, my goal was to put in a body shop, but I didn't want to run a body shop. And it's a whole different mindset. It's
Yeah.
a whole different parameters, but I wanted one there because up until that point, when we were in Owings Mills, we were either sending them, depending on what type of work. Is it a ripped bumper cover on a Macan or Cayenne, or is it a full restoration? Is it rust repair? Is it just a paint job? We would either send it to Finksburg or to CPR on Eastern Shore.
Yep.
Or we were using a friend of mine, Peter Dahl, uses a body shop up in Allendale or Poconos. Or we were sending them down. We sent some to North Carolina, and it's crazy. You can't manage the job when it's that far out of sight, out of mind. And so my goal was always to have a body shop there, and I got a really, really, really good guy and talked him into leaving a big dealership chain and starting his own, and helped him get on his feet. And now we can barely get a car in.
So your first move from the original OG shop that Ralph had, and you're in the kind of the same building next door, that's a pretty easy transition, and all your customers won't get lost. So I'm sure Ralph was quite stressed when you said your new facility is not in the same, I don't even think it's in the same zip code. I
No.
mean,
It's 15, 20 minutes north, and there was some transition problems, as you can imagine. The biggest one is sometimes you'll Google Maps, Ralph's, and they still send you 4 years later to Owings Mills.
Yeah.
And that only affects the customer that we have a couple customers that, left. They moved to wherever, and then their jobs brought them back, or they've retired and come back, and they'll still go to the Owings Mills address. But it was probably a year. But what we found any transition, you're right, you're going to lose a couple customers. Like, well, I was only half a mile from your shop. I'm just going to go to Stoller out of convenience,
Right.
the local dealership. What we didn't realize when we put this big marquee sign up on Main Street in Hampstead, how many Porsche owners were in Northern Carroll County and Hanover, PA, that are driving up and down Route 30 that had never heard of Ralph's.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
So you picked up
literally
a new market.
Yeah.
a complete line borough, Hampstead, Manchester, Westminster, Tawnytown, that word got out, and they're like, well, how long have you guys been in business? We're like, 54 years.
Yeah.
They just never, and they were driving all the way to Hunt Valley or all the way to Stoller, and they love having us. So when I first joined Rouse and we moved next door, we would get maybe a new customer once every 2 or 3 weeks. When we opened these doors up in Hampstead, it was 1 or 2 a week. Now that's leveled off because we found them all.
Right.
But it was literally overwhelming because they're like, we weren't ready for that, and
But that's really only one part of the equation. And recently, I think, we took the motor out of the 996, and I've always been very like, just when a mechanic, just like a teacher, right? A teacher is always underpaid, and mechanics oftentimes are also very much underpaid, especially good ones. So part of the equation is to get the customer in. We know Ralph, he's good,
Yeah.
but that's one person to be able to service all of this new customers and demand that you have. So as a shop owner, what was it like trying to fill some mechanics and qualify them and make sure that you have people that either Ralph can teach or they came with a set of skills? That's got to be challenging.
it's a great question because we could use another talented mechanic. Now, we just lost one to not to another shop locally, not to a dealership. We lost him to Chambers Porsche in Boston because he followed his girlfriend up. She goes to school there, getting a degree. So
Yeah.
he chased it. And they hired him. And, this is a 21-year-old kid who's going to be an engineer. He's dual engineering degree, electrical and aerospace at Embry-Riddle.
Wow.
Which, by the way, is where Mike Levitas went.
Oh.
And so he's up there, and, he doesn't even have uniforms yet. He's walking around in his black Ralph's T-shirt. So now we got a whole bunch of requests from the mechanics. They all want Ralph T-shirts. But they have 2 gold techs up there, and they had an air cooled on the car, and they get up on the lift, and the mechanic, Graham, just wanders over there, and the mechanic said, God, what are these? This is a gold. He said, what are these holes here? And he said, well, that's where the thermal reactors went, but everybody's pulled them off and put, European headers because thermal reactors just baked.
Right.
They ruined the motors. And it's like, who are you? How do you know this? He goes, well, I worked at Ralph's. And so within 2 weeks, he calls down. He goes, hey, is there any chance we could borrow Ralph for a second? We're tearing apart a 2.7. We have a question on the distributor. Nothing's working. So Ralph at 5:30 at night is on because Ralph had never even done FaceTime.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a cell phone. Ralph is doing FaceTime with a gold tech and 4 of the guys, giving them lessons on the distributors, how certain years they went clockwise, other years they went counterclockwise. Yeah. And they were like, man, this is great. Can we ever call you again if we need you? Because they don't have anybody.
Right. It's such a broad catalog to cover, and
huge.
Most of the work that's going to come through a dealership is going to be modern stuff, right?
Correct.
So.
But we get requests, not every day, once every week or two. Somebody will come in and want to apply for a job, and we'd love to hire them, but they have their idea of experience is at Jiffy Lube, or at a Firestone tire deal, and nothing against those, but we need some ground basis. Whether you worked at Mercedes or Audi, there's even a mindset with how you act and how you interact as a mechanic, whether it's an American car versus a Japanese versus German. They're all engineered differently. Yeah. It's gotten more congruous, but the older stuff, you could have the best Ford mechanic in the world. He ain't gonna know what to do when he pulls apart an air-cooled 3.liter, 3.2 liter with, dual cam banks. And
what do you see most of? Is later model cars or the old cars?
We're about 35-65 or 40-60. And it's increasing. So we're
40 older?
No, 60 older, 40 newer. Okay. It's almost 50-50, but not quite. But we have really good, 2 good techs. Ralph is all air cooled, doesn't want to work on anything water cooled. Russ is all water cooled, but he's good. He can work on anything, but he's focused on the water cooled. And then we have Mike, who we got from a very good Ferrari shop, and we lured him for 5 years before we could get him to come. And Mike can, we got him there to fill the role as route, for engine building and gearboxes. But he's very versatile. He can work on the air cooleds, the water cooleds. But his specialty is engine building and gearboxes.
Now with the newer Porsches, we know a lot of equipment is invested at a dealership. We're talking about like six-figure computers and such. So for you to be able to work on, I'm assuming people that have cars under warranty and or CPO, they're still taking them to the dealership. But the very second that it comes off warranty,
We get a lot of them.
then they're coming to your shop. So are you making those same investments in computers, or how do you?
We have a
get your-
PWIS 3.
Okay, so you do have that. Okay.
Yeah, we have PWIS 3. We don't have the PWIS 4 yet, but I'm told there are certain dealers in the country that don't even have PWIS 4 yet. It's funny because Stoller's got one or two, so does Hunt Valley. I found out from the kid that worked at the shop, from Graham, that Herb Chambers has 12 PWIS 4s.
Oh,
12.
oh,
I'm like, are you sure? He says, I've seen them. They're
Wow.
all 12 of them. That's a big shop,
yeah.
and they're 24 bay, and they're increasing to 36 bay.
If I'm not mistaken, back in the day, folks outside of the dealership network were not able to have access and or buy a PWIS. Like they had to buy a used one from a dealership or something like that. Is it true that Porsche or Porsche Classic now makes PWIS and the subscription service available to independent shops now?
I've heard yes, and I've heard no.
Okay, that's what I've heard too. So I wasn't sure.
I'm very fortunate that I was
You're
able
able
to
to.
procure a PWIS 3.
Yeah.
It's odd because in the BMW world, they openly will share everything that any BMW dealer has.
Yeah.
If you're an independent shop, you
Yeah.
can get any tool, any special tool, all the computer software, anything. Porsche has been much more guarded
Yeah.
with
Good
their proprietary software, and where there's a will, there's a way. We're waiting for PWIS 4. I don't think we need the 4. I mean, I'm not like panicking, running around trying to find a 4, because most of those cars that are 24s, 23s, 22s, 21s, they're still under warranty.
Yeah.
So, and the PWIS 4 is also much more geared toward the hybrids and the crossover cars, which I don't ever envision us. I never say never. I don't ever envision us working on electric cars. I don't want to. I don't want to make the investment. I don't want the liability.
You've got plenty of work as it is.
Yeah, we have plenty of work.
So how about the old adage and some of the older groups talk about how, Porsches, the air cooled and the early ones, they don't make them like they used to. Is that true? Are the older ones any more reliable? Because I feel like people forget.
Yeah.
Are the older ones any more reliable than the new ones?
No, different ways.
Right? That's what
I mean, listen, we have a customer has been coming to Ralph since his 86, 87 Carrera came out of warranty, which was a year back then or whatever it was. He's got 400,000 miles and 3 engine rebuilds and 3 or 4 clutches, and the car still looks gorgeous. I mean, gorgeous. It's a daily driver unless it's snowing.
Yeah.
But we also have, I mean, you talk about reliable. I relentlessly abuse and punish my diesel Cayenne. I mean, if it'll last under me, it's a testament, because I try to drive it like a GT3. I mean, I just punish it, and it's a tank. But they have different problems than the air cooleds.
Yeah.
Depth problems, or diesel particulate filter goes bad. But that's the nature of the beast.
How about electronics? Because obviously, in let's say a G-Body 911, you're talking about the Motronic box under the seat. Really, that's it. And everything is positive, switched, or ground. But then these newer cars, let's take a Cayenne. There's like 15 computers in a Cayenne. So are you seeing any trends of the newer computers needing to be serviced, or
Only if there's been some trauma or
water?
Water,
Okay,
yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because all the new, the Caymans, the Boxsters, the everything is under the seat, right where the
I
water
know,
goes.
the worst place to be, right?
Yeah, the carpet gets saturated,
Yeah.
and then the foam it trashes them. And It affects the CAN bus system. But so we are seeing that, especially when people aren't educated on the drain holes on cars.
Yeah.
And water backs up and goes down into it. That's where we're seeing the damage. But just day-to-day use, and no, I mean, they're
So
I think a lot of it, people say that is because your 87, my 90 have no check engine lights.
yeah,
That's true.
Ignorance is bliss. We have
Right,
no
exactly.
sensors.
Very
So
good.
we don't have the car telling us every minute
Oh, yeah.
detail of something that's gone up. Where the new cars now, if you get a quarter low on washer fluid, something comes up to tell you.
It's great point, Manny. It is so infuriating. We'll do a oil change on a new car. I don't know, GT3, a Cayenne, a Panamera, it doesn't matter. And the next day, the person calls us upset. It says my oil light's on. It says oil's low. Take to the dealership. It is literally a thimble or a shot glass low.
Yeah, but it triggered it.
I mean, in the old days, you go to the gas station, fill it up, you pull a paper towel out, you pull your dipstick out,
Yeah.
and you check your dipstick.
There's
and
no oil on it at
oh,
all.
yeah, there's no oil, or it's a half a quart. I can go for a while.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, warning lights scare the heck out of the customers,
Yeah.
and they come, or it'll say it's overfilled. Again, it's a thimble.
Yeah.
Because the sensors where they are, it's a thimble or a shot glass. And to Manny's point, we've got so many lights and panic and warning signs that people, they overreact. So,
It's the only reason you open up the owner's manual, because you're like, what in the world does that symbol mean?
and now you don't even get those.
I know, you got to look online.
You got to check the keyboard or the screen.
Yeah. Tell me about customer expectations, because one of the toughest things that I think shops face is you've got the task at hand, but you also are dependent on so many other components in the system. And what I mean by is, let's say someone brings you a car that got a light. We talked about someone getting rear-ended today in the tunnel. I think you were coming to work. A rear end job or a front end job, whatever.
So you got stuck on that too, huh?
Well, I told you every day for 7 days in a row now, there's been an accident in the Baltimore tunnel because someone rear-ended somebody else.
Yeah. So anyways, a car like that comes in, and you're ready. You take it out, do the inventory of what needs to be replaced. You have the person there that can do it, but then you got to wait for insurance. You got to wait for parts. Then they send you parts that's not the right parts, or then you get into it and then you find other things. Customers only want to see, I brought it to you, fix it, and tell me the date that you're going to give it back to me. How do you deal with that when you've got dozens of customers kind of in the system?
Most people, especially with the older cars, most people are very understand. It's not their daily driver for the air cools in their collector cars.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
It's not their daily driver. Even if it's a GT3, it's not usually their daily driver. They have 2 or 3 or 4 other cars. The ones that we found, and everybody's expectations and management of expectations changed during COVID. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a time where you get an oil filter, I can have them there in 2 hours. Either from the Porsche dealer or IMC, which is an outside, or Worldpac or SSF, or any of these suppliers, or even Napa. And there won't be a Porsche, it'll be Wix or something, but you could have it in an hour. During COVID, it got to the point where you took that for granted. Mm-hmm. And you'd call the Porsche, what do you mean I got to wait 4 days for brake pads? They used to have them there in 4 hours. And there was a lot of dancing trying to explain that to people. And I'm afraid we're going to face that now as of October 1st. All the ships are stopped.
Oh, because the dock strike?
We're very concerned. And we went on a buying spree of oil filters last week. Oh. We picked our 10 most used filters, and we got 6 or 8 or 10 of each. I mean, we spent a stupid amount, and we've never stocked like that.
So a message to other shops: if you need oil filters,
yeah. I was just thinking is that I have 4 because they changed Napa changed the manufacturer of the filter for the M97 engine.
Yeah,
and so the holes are smaller on the new one. So I just went out and bought 4 ones from LN because they had the right one. Yeah. So same filter, 1342 or 1042.
Why are they-
I think.
1342.
They
They sell the
changed
same
design.
part number, but it's a different design. I
Yeah,
mean, it works because it'll spin up.
COVID introduced us to the phrase supply chain issues,
Yeah.
Yes.
which we had never done before.
No.
So yeah, I think you're right. People's expectation when they hear a part's delayed, it's no more. Oh my God, why is that? Such and so can get it in a couple hours because it's an issue that hasn't really been resolved since the pandemic.
And it wasn't just us. I remember when you talk about our new office and everything, you came upstairs, we were waiting. We had ordered the architect and the builder had ordered glass because we got all glass front looking out of the shop. You guys have all been there.
Yep.
We were told 6 to 8 weeks by the glass company. I won't say their name. They're local, Baltimore. It was 8 months.
8 months.
8 months.
Oh.
8 months to get it in.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where we had ribbons so people wouldn't walk off the edge of our,
Yeah.
and we had put up a temporary blockade. I mean, it was crazy. So it wasn't just our industry, it was everywhere. And we are very concerned. Michelin tires. Now, I don't think we'll have a problem with Yokohamas or Bridgestones, but Michelin, Continental, Pirelli, where they come, the high end stuff is still coming from France, Germany, and Italy.
Yeah.
You can buy low end Michelins like for your Ford
That's produced
Transit
here, yeah.
van
Yeah.
that's either produced here or China.
Yeah.
But the good stuff for the the GT3s, the RSs, the high end cars, the turbos, that's all still coming from France, Germany, and Italy. And I
Did
think
we just set off an alarm? Because I wasn't thinking about this earlier today, and now all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I need?
yeah.
No, it's okay because Bridgestones and Kumos are amazing for what we do. So
No, he's
there you go.
He's thinking about the hair care products. He's
Yeah.
he's gonna go hit Amazon as soon as this
I'm gonna
podcast
go shopping
finishes.
later.
But so we've been gearing up for this because we're very. I mean, we doubled our supply of oil. We use two very high end oils, and we, and both are coming from Europe. Liquid Moly and Motul. So we doubled our order because I don't want somebody to come in for an oil change and we can't do it.
it almost sounds like if maybe anybody could take a lesson from this podcast is that if you're going to be doing service on your car, maybe plan it out a little bit more this year or for the next couple of years.
I
don't
always
get
have
stuck with your.
I always have at least one,
Yeah.
like whatever I'm using. I bought
Yes.
the set that
The
I
next
need.
one?
The next one. It's already
Yeah.
on the shelf. Yeah.
I don't think my car's gonna last that long, so I don't buy that far ahead.
We have a customer whose son races KTM dirt bikes. They're from Europe. KTM sent, if you're a pro rider, motocross rider, KTM sent out an email last week sometime saying effective October 1st, we're going to DHL everything overnight or second day from Austria and from Europe because
So they just can't depend on.
well, their normal stock gets on the boat and all the dealerships have it, but the racing teams, if they can't get it, they can't compete. So against the Hondas and the Suzukis, all those parts are coming from the West Coast.
Yeah.
So
So Manny had a question here that I thought was interesting. Is there any repair work that you'll turn down?
Oh, I know the answer to that. You told us, I think, a couple of years ago. I remember this
I see
one.
that grin. Is this a loaded
Yeah.
question that Manny
No,
sent
no,
me
I
on the
don't-
list?
Well, no, it's something that people should know
Yeah.
if they're getting into these cars.
we're fine. 2 cars. We are deferring Panameras unless it's a really good customer and we service 2 or 3 of their Porsches. We're deferring Panameras to dealerships or other shops. We are also 928s are very hard to get parts for now.
Yeah.
And 944s, certain parts are getting very hard. You can almost find any part for any 911.
Yeah.
Even back to 65, 66. On either new or in secondary markets been restored. 928s, not so much.
Yeah. But why deferring Panamera? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's new.
They are an electrical nightmare.
Really?
Absolutely. I mean, love Cayennes. Cayennes, for whatever reason, or not. Panameras, are electrical nightmare.
That's where Rob Sass and I get into an argument. Because yes, Panameras are great buys.
Right.
There's, no
There's a
argument
reason.
there. The engines are very reliable.
Yeah.
But it's the electronics, I
Yes.
tell them. I go, because it seems to have so many sensors. Because I've had friends who've owned Panameras, and they unfortunately got tired of going to the dealer for every
little-
time
little,
a
like,
check engine thing
yeah.
came on.
All the time.
Yeah, which was like, a lot. It's like, bring up your BMW. You know how it has like the playlist of all the things that are wrong with it?
Yes.
When you turn it on?
Yes.
It's like the Panamera is like that.
Yeah.
You can live with it, that's fine. Most people can't. And as soon as one comes up, they take it to the dealer. And like Chuck said, sometimes it's for the silliest thing. But still, it's
for those that don't know, they panic and then
sure, yeah, because this thing comes up that says, take to the shop. And what are you going to do? You don't want to drive it.
Panamera's it's like ultimate luxury in the Porsche line. More luxurious, I'd say, than a Cayenne. More luxurious than a Taycan.
I would love to have a Panamera.
So everything's motorized.
But what we're finding is if you go on eBay and go on any of these sites, Cars and Bids, all these different sites, we'll get young buyers. Young male buyers that they're so excited they picked a Panamera up for $6,000 and they bring it in because they bought it and it's got a check engine light on and take to dealership and they bought it off eBay and they can't believe they're in a Panamera.
What a steal
for $6,000. Yeah. Well, there's a reason.
Yeah.
And now I asked them, where'd you get the car? Oh, it was Houston, New Orleans, Tampa.
Oh no,
Sarasota.
Flood.
As soon as the car gets there and we pull the carpet up, we're like, all the wire ends are green. It's all been compromised.
Yeah.
So there's a reason these cars are so cheap. And they buy them, and we're like, it's going to need a new loom, or it's going to need a CAN bus system, or look under the seat, everything. Your estimate's $12,000. Now, I only paid $6,000 for the car. We get it. Thank you for thinking of us. Here's the number for Porsche Event Valley.
Wow.
I always say that the car doesn't realize it's $6,000.
Right.
The car still thinks it's $150 when it was new. Yeah. So
correct.
It's going to be charged accordingly.
Or is there a certain generation?
Just the oldest ones now are so cheap that people that shouldn't be buying them are buying them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they can get into a Panamera for less than a Honda Accord.
But the same thing happened in 928s.
Yes.
And they became very inexpensive and people couldn't maintain them. And so they either jury rig stuff or just had deferred maintenance. And now when you get them, there's so much things that you have to fix to bring it up to the level. Or if you're buying it from someone who's taking it to the dealer all its life, that's a perfect scenario.
Buy it right.
But those are going to be more money.
Yeah, but then if you're buying it from like the third generation of the guy who couldn't afford it when it came off warranty and bought it, and then try to jury rig stuff, then you're...
That's where Manny's so good about this. Like, Manny's always telling me, like, just save your money and buy the best example. And don't try to... I'm a bargain hunter. I'm like a...
But you get what you pay for.
I know. And he tells me that all the time, which is why I
guess if you like working on stuff yourself a lot, then maybe
I do.
Maybe you'll come out on
level
top.
Where it's like it's just better to start with
Because the ladies in customer service said there's a member on the phone who just bought a $5,000 Panamera, and he wants to know what he should be on the lookout for. And I remember I looked at her and I said, "Are you serious?" She said, "Yeah, he got it for $5,000." I'm like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
And they don't understand, and they just don't understand. And what's worse than that is the folks that will come in, and it's the same demographic. It's the Panamera owners, and they've got the used car warranty that the dealership sold them. The used car dealership sold them with the $6,000, $5,000 Panamera, and then you're trying to deal with that, and they're a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because what they'll do, they're very slick, and if any other shops are hearing this, they'll tell you we had to take Panamera turbos. And we got into it when we were able to show them that all the teeth, the fins were gone.
Yeah.
And, oh no! And their appraiser said, "Well, I can't see that. You need to take it out." Well, we have to drop the whole engine. They got us to drop the engine, and then they didn't approve it.
Oh wow! So that's third-party warranties.
Yes.
That's a very good. Just quickly, because I know we're kind of getting to the top of the hour. When people are buying cars that are out of warranty, they call PCA often, and they're like, "Should I buy a third-party warranty?" And what I and Manny typically tell them is like, go to the shop that you think you'll be taking your car to and ask them, is there any third party warranty that they've worked with that has been a good program? And so my question to you is, has there been one that has worked out well for you and your customers?
There are one or two that will pay for things, but they just, it's like pulling teeth. They bleed.
It's work for you, right?
Oh yeah. I have to put one of the girls that works in the office. She'll spend 2 or 3 days trying to get our money.
Yeah,
that's lost productivity.
Right.
Trying to chase the money that's owed to you, and
so many shops just rather not deal with it.
We're to that point,
right? And so that's what we tell the people that call here is like, hey, whatever you buy, make sure whoever you're taking the car to accepts it, because if they don't accept it, it's pretty much like you threw money into the wind.
Not only that, that's also insurance that I dealt with. I have insurance, and the body shop that I wanted to take my car to didn't take that insurance because
they didn't
flat out. They didn't want to
yeah.
deal with them.
Yeah. So then what good is the plan?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're to the point we had, if they approve it, we're like, okay, you, the owner, you pay for it and get them to reimburse you.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's remind everyone.
Before we go,
go ahead.
You got to hear Chuck's story about because somebody says to me, we were talking about IROC. So for those who don't know, IROC, the International Race of Champions, it made famous when Roger Penske brought over the 911 RSRs and raced them all same cars, different champion drivers of different, from drag racing, road racing, Formula One, and whatnot.
Big names.
In the Porsche world, it's an iconic name, IROC, and a lot of people have made tribute cars about them, and so on and so forth. So we were at Cars and Coffee one day, and we were talking about this, and somebody says, well, Chuck Goldsborough owns that. I'm like, owns what? And they're like, IROC. I'm like, how in the world does Chuck own IROC? That's not possible. And so I go home and I Google, who owns IROC? And I start looking at the results, and I find that, lo and behold, Chuck owns IROC.
Wait,
the
really?
brand.
What?
So I'm like, next time I see him, I'm going to have to ask him about how in the world do you end up owning the IROC brand. So I saw him at a Cars and Coffee, and I said, I got to ask you something.
How did this happen?
Roger Penske had owned it for years and years and years, and he's so busy with IndyCar and his multiple championships, and now he owns the Indy 500. It was very low on his priority list. And after renewing it twice, he didn't renew it. I looked, and there's 6 or 7 logos. There's the word IROC, or the acronym.
Yeah.
There's International Race of Champions. There's International Race of Champions IROC with the flag, and there's all the colors and everything, and they were all available. And I was doing trademarks for another enterprise I'm doing. I said, screw it. I told my lawyer, I said, get all 6 of these. He goes, what is it? I said, just get them. So I got them, and then Dave from TRE calls because he's putting together an IROC a tribute.
I think that's how we got in a conversation with Rob Abbott. We were talking about it.
And Dave said, hey, do you really own this? I said, yeah. Here's what I'm going to do. I said, you can use it. Just get insurance. Make sure that I'm covered.
Right.
Somebody falls
Additionally
off the cliff.
insured.
Yes. And then about, I don't know, a year and a half into it, I get a call. I don't know how the guy from Charlotte, an old guy that was with ESPN, race announcer that knew me from racing. His name is Det Cullum. I get a call from Det, and I said, he said, Chuck? Yeah. I said, Det Cullum, you might not remember me, but I interviewed you on Speed Vision, ESPN camera at the 24 Hours Wild. Yeah, how you doing, Det? He says, listen, I heard you own all the IROC affiliate logos and names and everything. I said, yeah. Why'd you buy them? I don't know. That'd be cool to own. And a friend of mine's going to do a tribute series. He goes, well, Ray Everingham would like to buy him back.
Oh.
Remember, Ray Everingham was the original.
Sure.
You saw him recently.
Crew chief for, actually,
For
he's a
Pence?
member of PCA.
Yeah.
And a crew chief for, when I knew him because
Jeff Gordon.
Jeff Gordon's crew chief.
But prior to that, he ran IROC.
Yeah, which I didn't know. Yeah.
So he and Rob Kaufman owns RK Motors, and Rob Kaufman's also a part of Ganassi, maybe, down in Charlotte. They didn't realize that Roger had let the thing go because for 2 years they've been working on a tribute series of IROC. They're going to do like an IROC historical races, and they're like,
we need these
we
logos.
need these back.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, well, we can talk. And so now, and then they had their first event at Lime Rock, and they had a suite for me and tickets and everything. So they're like, you can come to every event.
So, do you still own them?
No, I sold them to
Sold them.
Rob Kaufman and Ray Everingham.
I told you he's the most interesting man alive.
A man of opportunity.
Yeah.
So, what vehicle did that parlay into?
It covered my expenses.
Nice.
It was fun, and they've been very gracious, and
Yeah.
they invited me to every event that they're going to do, and I think I tried to put them together with Dave at TRE because I told Dave he could use these, and it's only 1 year that Porsche was IROC.
Yeah.
They're going to focus on the rest of the Camaro years and
Yeah.
Dodge years and all that stuff. Because evidently a lot of collectors still own all the old IROC cars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, we don't know. That could be a conflict. I said, guys, it's a whole different demographics. I said, it'll complement it because IROC started with Penske and Porsche.
Very cool.
So now they're working it out and they're going to be on the same calendar and stuff. So it all worked out.
Okay. Well, let's remind everyone to head over to pca.org. If you haven't signed up for our e-newsletters, we have performance news, e-brake news, and Mark Fresh news. And let's get into the news. This first item, Chuck, feel free to chime in too with these discussions, is talking about a hold situation for Porsche.
This is Porsche Holdings. Their stock, I believe. That's
Yep.
is holdings, right?
Yeah, holdings, but also hold, don't buy.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
wholesale, don't buy. Just,
Yeah.
and what's interesting about the article was they're insinuating that a lot of the analysts feel that Wolfgang Porsche should step down because of his age, but he's just signed on again to be the chairman of the supervisory board and this holding. So it was interesting to read that they think that the stock would do better if he were to step down and let someone else run it. But it's all owned by the family, so it's going to have to go to someone in the family. They're not going to.
Right, they're not going to relinquish
bring an
that.
outsider.
For those who are wondering, there's Porsche AG, which is in Germany. They make cars, and there's Porsche SE, which is a holding company that owns majority of Porsche AG, I believe. Correct?
Who's next in line?
The things.
That's a good question. There's several people that could be in line, but
Yeah.
whether or not they will be the recipient of that
A lot
responsibility.
of the kids of
Yeah,
the
a lot of kids.
The
of
great
the original,
grandchildren.
four children are involved as well, and then you have the Piech family also. So it's all going to stay in the family. But interesting that they're obviously when stock doesn't perform the way it's supposed to,
Hold.
that people start pointing fingers.
Yeah. We were talking about we were talking about tires earlier, and here's a opportunity for some Porsche owners to get free tires.
The Carrera GT.
Yes.
A very small circle of people.
If you're a Carrera GT owner, obviously you've probably been contacted by Porsche already. So the details may vary as far as exactly what you get, but they're going to include maintenance to bring the car, I guess, back up to snuff because it's been 2 years since they've been parked, or almost 2 years. And so I guess Porsche doesn't want to have another Paul Walker incident where people have been sitting on old tires or maintenance that has been done to the car. So because of the fact you had to park the car this long for them to make the fix and get the parts.
Fresh tires for you.
And fresh Michelins, too.
Yeah. Very nice.
It's funny because the new Michelins on the same car from 05 when they came out, the new Michelins are good for 4 to 6 seconds on the exact same car at Nürburgring.
Wow.
So
Of
it's
course, they may be delayed now that the strike's
Yeah.
coming.
better get them overnighted.
Yeah.
More not so great news. Man, you just full of them this
I
week.
know. We talked about this. This is the number 6 car.
Yeah.
Yeah, the team that finished third place got stripped of their points because they found a non-homologation wiring harness.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I don't know how much it gave them a performance advantage, but rules are rules. So they lose the points. What it really hurts is that the number 6 was closing in on the other Penske team for the championship. So now they're in the 100 and some points away instead of being, I think, 17 points away. So makes the task that much harder for Petit Le Mans for them to
I still don't understand. It's not like
to win.
they
they're the-
changed it.
They're the same car. Why
Yeah.
would you have two different wire looms on the exact same model car?
I don't think. Well, whatever they did, Porsche didn't seem to argue. They just
Just took it
nodded their head and.
took it in the chin.
Wonder what that means.
Well,
Because if you notice, every time there's a infraction, Porsche usually states there was no performance advantage.
yeah. This one was
but this one,
no comment.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the last news item, we have someone new at the helm at Porsche Cars Canada.
Did you ever meet this gentleman?
I don't-
Because he was the area West manager.
That's what I saw.
That's what I was
But
wondering.
I don't
Did we ever meet him?
We ever met Trevor?
Say 2 first names.
No.
Yeah, he was Trevor Arthur.
Trevor Arthur.
Yeah. Who and is also not German, or at least not
Yeah.
from the fatherland. He is Canadian. Well, started off at Porsche Cars Canada Limited, and went to PCNA, and now he's back and he's at the helm of Canada. So congratulations to Trevor, and hopefully we get to meet him in the near future.
So our interview with Timo went incredibly well. I think it was well received. Hopefully, if we can figure some things out, maybe we can get Trevor on the line.
And he could answer all the questions we weren't allowed to ask. Timo.
I'm sure it's the same restrictions.
Yeah, right.
You can't ask anything about the future. That was a tough one, but we managed to still have a pretty solid interview there. All right, let's get into some events. Of course, we've been talking about our next national event that's coming up in Corona, California. That is Unstock, Sunday, November 17th. Registration is open. I think we still have a few more slots for those that want to display their modified Porsches. Be sure to register your car soon. For those that want to attend, there's some high dollar events in Southern California going on right now. But if you want to come to Unstock, you just need to show up and
Pretty much.
have fun with us,
Yep,
right?
there's no tickets. You just come on in, no charge.
If you want to display
You guys
your
going? Are you
car,
guys going to Luft?
I wish I was, but unfortunately I am not.
I just canceled last night. Just canceled my hotel room.
You did? Oh.
Yeah, I'm not going now.
Yeah, it's a big expense.
Yeah.
It's a bucket list event, and I know people that have the opportunity to go will have an incredible time.
I
But,
went
man,
to what was it, 7, where they were at Paramount,
Yeah,
and it's incredible location to host that.
it's one. If you can go, you should do it, and hopefully I'll get there soon. For those of you that are planners, talking about 2025. Want to remind you that the 69th Porsche Parade will be in Oklahoma City, and it will be July 6th through July 12th. First round of registration will be probably January timeframe.
It's early in the year. There's
yeah.
2 phases, so closer to winter and then mid-spring, I believe.
Yep.
And if you're wondering what's in Oklahoma City, it doesn't matter. Because what I've learned is they always pick great sites, and I didn't think there was anything in French Lick, Indiana, but that turned out to be one of the most fun parades we ever did. So much so that we went back like 5 or 6 years later. So I've given up trying to figure out sometimes why they pick certain areas. All I know is that they do a lot more research than I do, and it always turns out that we're pleasantly surprised.
I've had a sneak peek of Oklahoma City. The town is incredible. The facility, the hotel that we're going to be staying at is top notch. A beautiful
What about
park.
the food?
The
I think Oklahoma. I think of beef.
steak.
gonna say
Come
steak.
on now, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be good food, and I think pricing overall for the experience is going to be very similar to Birmingham, where it's reasonably priced as opposed to saying going somewhere like Monterey. So lots of roads, open spaces, beautiful city, probably the cleanest city I've been to recently. I had no idea. And then if you're a foodie, there's this whole like uptown area that has preserved, like it was like a car dealership row almost, but they kept the facade where it looks the same with the neon signs. Oh, it's incredible. And all those dealerships have been turned into incredible restaurants. And so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Let's see, our third national Treffin at Sea, which is our themed as our 70th anniversary cruise. We will be sailing August 30th to September 6th, starting out in New York, heading to Newport, then Boston, then Portland, then St. John and Halifax. That registration for Treffin at Sea 2025 is already open, and I'm here to tell you 700 PCA members, and I know 2 of them sitting here are already signed up. So if you're planning on going, I wouldn't wait, because believe it or not, rooms are limited, or certain types of rooms are limited. So if you want to get in on it, do that. We're also thinking about maybe doing something here at the PCA National Office for those that are coming from the West or coming up through Maryland, because going up 95 to New York. Maybe we'll do something here. Or I think some members have even asked us if they fly into here, can we charter a bus to get to New York? So we're looking at all that, and as soon as we have the details,
Does
we'll
the
share it
port
for you.
strike affect cruise ships?
No.
No,
Nope.
at all.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Also want to remind you, if you're looking to race against others, but unfortunately you don't have the budget or you don't have someone like Chuck finding a team for you, you can always go sim racing. PCAsimracing.com. They'll set you up with racing against your peers, and you can choose from prototypes to GT3s and such. Video updates.
We're coming out with a video on the owner of that Danny Blue 911 ST that we profiled in Monterey. And also, I'm editing right now Nathan Murr's 996.1 GT3 video. So I don't want to commit that it'll be ready next week, but soon.
It's coming, though.
It's coming. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, anything else? Oh, if you're looking for some insider swag, head over to the PCA web store. We've got water bottles, mugs, and t-shirts that you can show off to your buddies. Or if you're looking for a PCA insider decal, just send us a note at podcast@pca.org, and we'll happily send you a set of decals. Anything else before we sign off? All good? Chuck, thank you for joining us.
Guys, thank you very much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member and own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Grab that VIN and head over to pca.org. If you're looking for a Porsche, we have the test drive program where we'll unlock some resources to help you get your Porsche of your dreams on your driveway or in your garage. Remember to follow us on the podcast Instagram page, behind the scenes photos and videos, Porsche Club Insider, all one word. You can always email us at podcast@pca.org. And of course, I always have to say, we're looking forward to getting close to that 100,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. So please, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, do so today. We'd really appreciate it. With that, until next time, stay safe and we'll catch you down the road.